Hi everyone, I'm Sal from Edinburgh and I'm a 53-year-old teacher, and I've spent the last few years talking to a lot of my friends and colleagues at work about menopausal symptoms, and particularly about hair, a lot about hair and the issues that I've had with my hair going through the menopause. And over the years, a lot of them have been saying that I should um, make a video about it or do something to help other women that have been going through the same thing. Obviously, this has been a bit daunting, especially I think for my age. Maybe younger people are more comfortable with this, but to my age, it can seem a bit sort of narcissistic. But I have got up the courage to do it, and obviously this is my first video, so I'm sure it's going to get a lot easier and I'm going to feel more comfortable with it. But the whole idea really is to try and share some of the knowledge. And I've just got to embrace the cringe, because it is pretty cringy. But I'm hoping as time goes on, it's going to get less cringy. So this channel is mainly going to be about hair, as I said, but there's going to be lots of other things. It's going to be about just trials and tribulations of the menopause and how that affects your health and health and beauty, really. So what happened to me? Firstly, the first thing I always want to tell people about the perimenopause, obviously before you actually become menopausal, when you stop your periods, is that it's definitely about stealth. It's something that happens very slowly. In my case, it was. And things start to happen with your body and your health that are a bit off, a bit strange, new symptoms that you've never had before, new things appearing that you've never had before. And obviously, you don't really understand why. But I'm 53 now, and I have been fully menopausal for 2 years. So became fully menopausal classic time, 51, which is like standard time when most people do. But so when I was 40, so that was 11 years before I became fully menopausal. I started to get some symptoms. So my first symptoms were rosacea. Never had anything like that before. Very easy, straightforward issues with my skin up to then. So classic rosacea, when you drink alcohol, or you go in the sun, or you have spicy food, then you start to get all these little spots and redness all over your face, particularly your nose. So that, I'd say, if I think back, was probably the first thing that happened. Now, one good thing about that is, but I am very careful about not really being in the sun. I had that for a year or so, and I just really made that. As I said, I kept out the sun, made sure I kept out the sun, and put really high sun protection on. But that is one thing, hooray! That is one thing that actually got better. So that was my first symptom, but it did seem to calm down. So I did really worry and think, is this going to get worse? Is this the beginning of something more? But that's one good thing that did get a bit better. But if we go to the hair, which I said that a lot of this is going to be about hair, because hair is so important, and I know there are lots of important things, much more important things in life and going on in the world at the moment. But my daughters always go on about that line from Fleabag when one of them says, hair is everything. And definitely, hair can really, really make a big difference to how you feel about yourself. And when things start going wrong or change with your hair, it can be really difficult. And your hair is such a big part of your face, is such a big part of you. You know, the way you are, the way you communicate to people. If you're feeling self-conscious about your hair, it is such a big thing. So that's why a lot of this video is going to be about hair, because if I can give you some tips that are going to help you with your hair, then that's fantastic. So age about 42, so 2 years after I got the rosacea, started to feel, I remember going to a hairdresser when my girls were quite young, and I went to like a consultation, and the hairdresser said, oh, maybe you want to try this kind of thing because your hair's quite thin. No one had ever said that to me before. I'd never really thought that I definitely didn't have thin hair. I always had, never had really thick hair, but I would say I just had sort of standard thickness hair. And never contemplated the idea that I had thin hair. So that was the first thing that I can remember thinking, that's a bit strange. I don't know what she's talking about there, but obviously she had realized that my hair was starting to go a bit thin. And then I'd say about a year after that, I started to notice that my hair was starting to shed on my jacket, like my at work, on my suit jacket, all that kinds of thing. I had hair all over my shoulders. Never had anything like that. And I remember thinking, that's quite strange. Why have I got so much hair on my coats and my jackets? And obviously, that is to do with hormonal change. And basically, from age 40, my hair started to change due to my hormones started to change. And over the last few years, I've really realized how powerful hormones are. I mean, if you think about what hormones can do in your body, they're sort of signalers that tell your bodies to do things. They tell your body to go into puberty. They obviously tell your body to stop having periods. They make tell your teeth to lose their baby teeth and start growing your adult teeth. So they're really strong, powerful messages in your body, and they can do really major things. So basically, by 45, I would say that my hair was completely unrecognizable to what it was, say, 5 years before. And basically what happens, and what I've now learned, and obviously at that time I had no idea what was causing all this, but what happens is your estrogen levels, an incredibly powerful hormone, start to drop. And that does two things. Firstly, it makes your hair follicle shrink. So instead of having these really normal, healthy hair follicles, which your hair grows through, these hair follicles have shrunk down, which means that when that hair grows through, it's really squeezed. And you end up with these really fine bits of hair. So while before you might have had just normal thickness hair, and that you could style and you're happy with and did all the things that you're used to doing, now you've got this incredibly fine, delicate hair, which not only is fine, but is also goes really frizzy, goes really curly. It's a complete, the hair that comes through when you're going through perimenopause is just a totally different kind of hair, and it does totally different things. So by that time, as I said, my hair was just a completely different beast than what it was before. So I was talking about the estrogen levels dropping and making the hair follicle shrink, but also it changes your hair growth. Before it's a bit like when you're pregnant. When you're pregnant, you often feel that your hair is really thick, and that's simply because the growth stage, your body is telling your scalp to hold on to the hair before it sheds it for a longer amount of time. And obviously that's the more extreme stage when you're pregnant, but in a normal, before menopause, your scalp is just holding on to your hair for a lot longer. But when you start to go through the menopause, when your estrogen levels drop, then basically your body is telling your scalp to shed your hair more quickly. So that's something that causes your hair to always be on your jackets and your coats, and because it's coming out faster. And obviously, if it's coming out faster, then you're going to feel that you have less hair on your head. So that's basically what what estrogen is doing, is having a big effect on that. So what I had was this, obviously, this very fine frizzy hair, not so much hair. but also it was completely different to what I could actually do with my hair. Before, I was really lucky with my hair. I had totally normal consistency, not really thick, not really thin. I maybe put a bit of mousse in it. I just blew it upside down, hair dried it upside down, and it was absolutely fine. It had a tiny bit of a wave in it, so that was great because that gave it a little bit of body. But basically, I didn't have to do anything with it, which also meant that I had no hairstyling skills at all. I knew nothing other than the hairdryer and blowing it upside down. I didn't know anything about how to do hair. So when obviously I hit perimenopause and had all these issues with my hair, then that obviously caused a big problem for me. Still not great with styling my hair, but I've learned some tips, which I'm going to, on these videos, I'm going to show you what I do. Um, I can remember going out with a friend in a pub in London, and it was summer and it was being quite humid. And I can remember going to the bathroom and then looking at my hair in absolute horror because it had just frizzed up into just this like ball of awful curly frizz. I remember looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, what has happened? What even is this? And that was all just the new hairs and how they responded, particularly to humidity. Another thing I used to do is I've got sort of bob now, but for years I had long hair, and that was always my go-to hairstyle. I loved having long hair. I'm quite an arty person as well, so I really like to put my hair out of my face. It's funny, I think with some people, quite like fringes, and obviously it helps if it suits your face shape. And some people, I'm just one of those people, I can't stand my hair on my face. I just like to get it off my face. It's sort of irritating if it's not. And also, if I'm doing anything practical, artistic, I like to be able to put my hair up. And I love that whole look of putting it up and putting it into a little sort of loose bun at the back. I love that, how that looks. Anyway, that started to look weird. I put my hair up into a ponytail and it just looked really strange. It just didn't look how it was before, and that was for a lot of reasons. Firstly, because my hair didn't have the thickness and the sort of the depth that it had before. So this new hair, if I put it into a ponytail, it just looked really flat and sort of lifeless and kind of strange. So it was that, but also what happened is my hairline started to recede. So it I mean, it has definitely receded. It was probably down to about here beforehand. It's a lot better than it was, but at that point it had gone back even more, and classic around the temples. I didn't have any hair around here, so when it was all scraped back into a ponytail, it looked really strange. Um, and also, I had that thing which is what we call jellyfish hair, which is okay. As the hair was coming through at the roots, it would, it was a reasonable consistency. But because it was so delicate at the ends, and also because I'd been bleaching it, which I'll come on to into a minute, it just was all break. It would all just break off at the ends, and the ends were so fragile. So it would just, you would have this jellyfish hair where it was all just like fluffy at the ends and just horrific. So really, so the ponytail and the long hair just didn't work anymore. And so I came to the conclusion that I had to have a new hairstyle. And if you look on any videos on YouTube, they all say that a blunt bob, if your hair is, if you're feeling it's really fine, lacking body, if you want to give it a feeling of thickness, then you need to give it like some chunk. And luckily, blunt bobs are really fashionable, and I think they'll always be fashionable because they just look good. And obviously, you can have a blunt bob for whatever your face shape and whatever you like. So if you wanted to have more of a lob, it's further down, or if you wanted it to be a little bit shorter, you can definitely have a bob without it looking frumpy. It's just how you style it and how you have it cut. But that really made a big difference to me. And also, I suppose that's quite 80s. A blunt bob is quite an 80s thing. And I was obviously growing up in the 80s. So I like a sort of flipped over bob look. So that has worked for me. I am possibly at the moment thinking about, as my hair is in a bit better condition than it was, about potentially growing it a bit longer now. But while I was in the horrible jellyfish hair stage, and it was just impossible to manage, then definitely getting a bob made a big difference. And I'll come on to that later in other videos. But basically, when it was in the worst stage, I couldn't blow dry it at all. If I blow dried it, it just went into this horrific frizz. And I didn't know how to properly blow dry it so it was straight, and it just, even if I did that, it just didn't work. And also something else that's really important is when your hair starts to, perhaps some of it starts to fall out, or it sheds, then what you will end up with is hair growing through, but also new hair growing through. So you'll have hair that's one length, and then other hair growing through which is at different lengths. So that means that it's really hard to get like a smooth effect. So you've got all these little bits everywhere. And obviously I didn't want to knock those, because that's great. It shows that my hair was growing back. But it did mean that I went through a stage that it was just, that was really difficult, because you didn't get this smooth effect. You just had all these bits of different hair growth. And obviously the tricky thing about hair is that that whole process is quite slow. You know, it takes a long time to grow your hair from here to there, say, for example. So it was quite a long time of quite a lot of grief. And obviously, I didn't really know what to do with it. I just didn't know how to tackle it. So I couldn't blow dry it. And I couldn't even brush it with a hairbrush. I've always been used to, particularly my long hair, to be able to brush it with a hairbrush. Couldn't do that anymore. Just went into a horrific frizz that just made things 10 times worse. So luckily, I'm not at that stage anymore. I can blow dry it. I can brush it, and that's just wonderful to get to that stage. But as I said, there's been a big learning process, and I've had to change a lot of things with my diet and also how I treat my hair to get to a stage where I'm feeling a little bit happier about it. As I said, I will do some more hair styling, and I'll do a video on how I style my hair. But at that stage, when you feel you can't do anything with your hair, you can't brush it, you can't blow dry it, it's just total frizz. At that stage, what you need to use is some kind of texturizing product. I really liked this. This was amazing. I used a lot of different ones, but this one, so this one's the Bumble and Bumble BB Texture Hair Undressing Cream. It's a texturizing gel cream for a tousled, shine-free finish. But basically, what you need to do is, when your hair's wet, you need to put something in it which is going to act as a little bit of a gluey, not glue, but just to give it some kind of texture and some kind of what they say in hairdressing, a bit of grit. So it's not just like this smooth, flyaway, frizzy nightmare. So you just need to put a little bit of this in and work that through your hair. And that just, what I used to do, I used to towel dry my hair, not using a normal towel. You have to use a microfiber towel, and there's no rubbing or anything like that, because that's going to break your hair. Your hair is a very delicate creature that you have to really look after. So just using a microfiber towel, and then once it was damp, I just put something like this in it, and then I just let it dry naturally. And then once it was dry, then once I put some of this in, then I could put my hands through it. Again, I couldn't brush it. When it was completely dry, then I could try some more sort of texturizing sprays or something like that. But the blow drying and the hair brushing, that just didn't work at all. So that's a little intro into the issues I had with my hair going from perimenopause into menopause, and what my hair was like, the nightmare that my hair was. Obviously, on top of that, I was highlighting my hair. So there you've got hair that is incredibly delicate, really fighting for its life. And then then I was bleaching it. Early 40s, I only had a tiny bit of grey on the top of my head, nothing major. And so I was bleaching my hair. But obviously, my hair was becoming really delicate. So that was just making it worse. So that whole jellyfish thing that I was talking about, where my hair just started to break off at the ends, and that made it even thinner and even frizzier, was being made much worse by the highlighting. And I highlighted, sometimes I went to the salon, but I've been highlighting my own hair since I was about 15. So I was pretty good at doing my own highlights, foils. I used professional stuff. I was quite good at it, but it was still ruining my hair. And I was basically trying to get the highlights. The problem with the highlights, and I love highlights, I would say that I'm pretty much addicted to highlights, because especially if you've got fine hair, it's this vicious circle. Your hair is feeling fine, it's feeling flat, it feels like it hasn't got any dimension. Um, and if you just color it one color, it just feels even flatter. So the great thing about highlights, it just gives your hair dimension. When you flip it over, you've got all these different colors through it. It just makes you feel so much better about your hair and about yourself. But the problem with it is that it's ruining your hair. And as I said, your hair's already delicate, and then you are putting all that peroxide on it, which is making it delicate, making it break off. So you're just going round and round and round. You want your hair to look more voluminous. You want it to look more healthy. You want it to look more like when you were younger and you didn't have all these issues. But the highlighting thing, the cycle, is just making it worse and worse. So I had to completely step away from the highlights, which was really hard for me. And I still struggle with it. And every now and again, I think highlights, and then no. Because since I've stopped highlighting my hair, in the hairdressers or doing it myself, it has been so much healthier and has looked so much better. So really, for me, it has been like a two-pronged attack. It has been what I put into my body, and we'll come on to that in a second, with things like HRT, supplements, and what I eat, and how I treat my hair. Um, those things have completely changed, and I feel that it has really transformed the hair on my head. Okay, my hair is not what it was before. It is not the same texture. It's a totally different thing. Um, Another strange thing that I haven't talked about is my hair went curly. What on earth? That is another, if I watch other videos, that's a really another common thing, is that your hair starts to go curly. As I said, it always had a bit of a wave, but these kind of curls, this is just through scrunch drying my hair. No, I don't use any curling irons or anything like that, not using anything like that on my hair. But it will just curl. And I've noticed that the front part of my hair, I mean, hairdressers always talk about that the front part of your hair, the sort of fringe area, is a totally different beast than the rest of your hair. The front part of my hair is so curly now. I can pull it down and it'll almost go in corkscrew curls. Never did anything like that before, which obviously makes it a lot harder to style. And I have to almost style the front, and I will do a video on that. I style the front in a different way to style the rest of it, because it's just totally different. So that's another thing that really changed. No one talks about that your hair in perimenopause will start to go curly potentially. So yeah, two different things that I did to my hair to get it to this stage. I've sort of accepted that I'm never going to have the hair that I had in my 20s and 30s or whatever. It's never going to be the same, because the texture of my hair is just completely different. So what I've had to learn to do is accept that, but learn to protect it as much as I can, give it a helping hand, learn how to style it, learn how not to damage it further by how I color it, because I do color my hair. I've got the hair on the top of my hair is mainly grey now, and I will do extra videos about how I color it, because I think I've got to a point now where through colouring my hair for years, I've cracked it, and I've found a product and a way of doing it that is really cheap, because that is a real issue at the moment. And it doesn't damage my hair, and it gives quite a nice colour and a nice effect. Okay, I would love some highlights, but I'm not doing that anymore. And so with my new way of treating my hair, I have ended up with something that I'm a lot happier with. And that is the idea around all these tutorials, is that I show you what I've done, and hopefully it's really going to help you to get to a point where you're a lot happier about your hair. I remember hairdressers talking about not being, someone said, I'm not friends with my hair anymore. Me and my hair are not friends. And I wasn't friends with my hair for quite a long time, 2 or 3 years, I would say. And I have got to the stage where we've become friends again. But I've had to really treat that friend in a much better way and be much more gentle with it. So the next video after that quite long intro is going to be HRT, and really how that really transformed my hair. And it was a journey. I didn't just pick a HRT and then I started on it and everything was wonderful. It wasn't like that at all. It was quite a struggle. So I'm going to be talking about that next, and then after that I will do another video all about nutrition and any supplements, because that is another massive thing that has made a huge difference, not only to my hair but just how I feel in general. So I hope that has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed that, and speak to you soon.